A very good morning to all the students. I am Dr. HimaBindhu from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, and I'll be dealing with the robotics subject. My today's topic is ethics and legal issues in robotics. Most of the students or most of the people have a doubt. They are not certainly clarified what can the legal issues be when we are considering a robot, right? There can be a lot of legal issues, or there can be a lot of ethical issues being taking place when we manufacture a robot. So today, in today's session, we will be discussing about all these ethics and ethical issues and the legal issues in the robotics concept. Firstly, what do we mean by ethics or the legal issues, right? That is, as we all know, robotics plays a vital role in today's day-to-day life. Right, it is the manufacturing of the robots have increased. This is due to the rapid advancing field that is being taking place. That has been intersected with the n number of numerous ethical and legal consideration, right? So considering all these, the robotic concept have been increased. So in this we need to consider the span various domain, including the personal autonomy, the privacy of the robot, the employment, what are the different constraints coming across the employment when we deal with the robot, right? And what are the safety issues we have to consider when we deal with the robot, and what is the accountability and the development and the use of the artificial intelligence. As we all know, artificial intelligence is increasing in the day-to-day life, right? So what is the use of an artificial intelligence, and how can we implement this artificial intelligence in the robot? And when we are introducing this AI into robot, what are the legal issues being considered, or what are the ethical issues being considered in the robot? We need to have a very detailed description, or we need to have a very detailed idea about what to be done, right? So here the ethics in robot involves ensuring that the robots are designated and used in the way that are morally accepted, right? That is, any particular robot, when we are considering, it should be morally accepted by all the environment, whether when we are manufacturing any robot for an industry, or when we are manufacturing any robot for an industrial sector, or when we are manufacturing any robot for hospital services, right? That particular robot should be morally accepted by that particular company, right? That is, the ethics of that robot should be accepted firstly by that particular organization. And not only that, with the growing integration of the robot in our day-to-day life, right? With the growing integration of the robot in our day-to-day life, it is crucial to address the ethical concerns to prevent the harm and misuse, right? We need to also keep in mind that the robot will not harm, or the robot will not be misused when it is used in any particular organization, right? That is, as the robotic concept is been increasing viably in day-to-day life in the present environment. We need to consider that this particular robot will not be misused, or it will not harm any of the person in that particular organization. That it should be morally accepted. That is the first ethical discipline which we need to follow when we are manufacturing any robot, right? Secondly, these are the few of the ethical issues which we generally consider, right? That is safety, as I've told you just now. Safety is the first main important consideration to be taken place, and next the privacy of the robot. Next, the decision making environment. That is, the robot should have a self-disciplinary action, but it should not take its decision beyond the limit that we need to take care of. And next, coming to the job displacement, bias and fairness, and human-robot interaction. So all this we'll see in detail. Safety means what? What do we mean by safety when we come across the ethical issues of the robot? That is, we need to ensure that the robot do not harm the human, as I've told you just now, whether internally or accidentally. Even accidentally also, we should take care that the robot will not harm any of the person in that constrained organization, right? And this includes the physical safety in the case of robots interacting with human, and cyber security to prevent hacking and misuse. We need to take care that it will not be hacked or misused. This is one of the main safety which we need to consider when we are manufacturing any robot. If what happens when a robot is being hacked, or what happens when the robot is being misused, and we have seen in one of the movie, right, Robo 2, what happened in that, right? When the robot was misused, it started harming all the people around its surroundings. So or it will damage the organization, it will misuse the organization inputs or outputs, right? So we need to take the particular safety precaution when we are manufacturing a robot. Next, coming to the privacy, the robot, particularly those equipped with sensors and camera, right? The robots which are equipped with sensors and camera can gather significant amount of data. As we all know, even we as a human, the person with a sensing knowledge and a person with a vision have more clarity rather than a person without or when we consider any person who is blind, right? And when we consider any person with a vision, who is having more clarity? Obviously the person who is having vision, right? In the same way, the robot which is equipped with sensor and camera will gather more amount of the information, right? Ensuring that this data is collected, stored, and used in the way the perspective of individual privacy is crucial, right? This particular data, when it is considering, we need to consider the privacy of the other individuals, right? The robot, when it is collecting data or when it is storing that particular data, we need to consider the privacy of the individuals, which is very, very important, right? Next, coming to the autonomy and decision making. What do we mean by autonomy and decision making? It means that, for example, we have a Tesla self-driving car. What is happening? This that is also considered as one of the artificial intelligence being implemented in the car, right? So here, in the same way, when we are equipping artificial intelligence into the robot, we will be giving a programming to the robot in such a way that it can take its own decision at the required prescribed time, right? But we need to see the safety when it is taking the decision. That is one of the main constraint. Like the robot, when it becomes more autonomous, the ethical considerations about the decision making process arise, right? That is, when the robot is taking its own decision, it we come across some of the ethical problems being constrained. Like few of the robots may take the decision, especially in life and death situation, right? So when we are coming across that in the scenario, in that particular situations, we should be very careful that the robot will act smartly without harming any of the other persons, right? That is one of the important ethical issue which we need to consider. Next is the job displacement. As I've told you, many employees are being replaced by robot. That is, n number of, for example, 20 laborers are being replaced by one single robot. We also need to consider that one constraint. That is, the increased use of robot can lead to job loss in certain sectors, right? That is, when we are removing 20 laborers in place of one robot, there is a lot of job displacement taking place. So that will also become an issue, ethical issue, in that particular organization. So addressing the ethical implementations of the job displacement and finding ways to retain and support the workers is an important consideration. When we are removing these particular 20 labels, we need to use them in some appropriate required constraint in the same organization, rather than making that particular worker unemployed. That when we are doing that, what happens, it will become an disciplinary action in that organization that affects on the ethics of the organization, right? Replacing one robo in place of 20 will damage the workers unity and will also become an ethical issue in the organization, right? Next, that we need to consider. Next is the bias and fairness. What do we mean by bias and fairness? Right? That is, we need to ensure that the robo as well as the artificial intelligence do not perpetuate the existing biases in a significant ethical challenge, right? The artificial intelligence as well as the robo has to take care that it will not damage any bias significance of the ethical challenge. And not only that, the data or the algorithm and the design of the robotic system has to be included in the bias, right? The data or the algorithm or the design of the robot, whatever we are considering, should be included in the particular bias, or it should be very fair, right? Next is the human robo interaction. This is one of the main ethical issue which we need to consider. That is human and the robo interaction. This is very important. That is the ethical consideration which include the nature of interaction between the human and the robo. Right? When we are considering the interaction between the human and robo, we should ensure that the robots are to be designed truthworthy. That is, the robot, whatever we are designing, as I've told you the example of the robo movie, the person who have manufactured that particular robot itself have damaged the owner, right? The robot which has been manufactured by the owner, that particular same robot has damaged the organization of the manufacturer. So it should be truthworthy, right? The human robot interaction should be in such a way that the robot, whatever is being manufactured, should be truthworthy and should be fair with the organization and with the humans around the organization, and transparent and understandable. And that particular robot, whatever is being manufactured, should be very transparent and it should be very understandable. So these are some of the ethical issues which we will be considering before we manufacture any robot, right? And the main key ethical principles in these are the generalized ethics, right? And the key main important principles are the autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, transparency, and privacy. We need to consider all these when we are when we are manufacturing the robot. That is, robots should not respect the privacy of the individual, ensuring that personal data is protected and used ethically. The data, whatever we are collecting, should be ensured that it should be private and should not demoralize the person from whom that particular data is being collected. And when we come across the transparency, decision making process of the robot should be very transparent with respect to the stakeholder, right? And coming to the justice, the robot should be fair among all the people in the society, right? It should not There should not be any sort of partiality or anything taking place, right? And next, the robot must avoid harming intentionally or uncertainly, as we have already discussed, right? So these are some of the key ethical principles which we need to consider. Right. Coming to the legal issues, as we have told, other than the ethical issues, we also come across the legal issues. So, what are those legal issues when we come across the legal issues? That is liability. What do we mean by liability? Right? That is determining who is responsible for the action of the robot when it causes harm or damage. Right? We need to firstly plan. We need to make an SOP that who will be responsible if the robot is harming or damaging any of the person or any of the organization. We need to have a legal issue. This could include manufacturer, programmer, or the users. This will include the manufacturer, programmer, as well as the users. So we need to write an SOP before that. Next is the intellectual property. What do we mean by intellectual property? Addressing the issues related to the ownership and use of IP created by the robots, such as the literature or the invention. Right? We That is also one of the main important legal issue which we need to consider. Next is the employment law. As I've told you, when we are removing the number of employees in place of one robot, that will also become a legal issue. So we need to consider the employment law in that legal issue, right? That is impact of the robot on employment, including job displacement and creation of the new jobs, as I've told you, right? That is one of the main important constraint we need to consider, right? Next is the standards and regularizations. What do we mean by standards and regularizations? That is developing and enforcing the regulations and standards to ensure the safety and the ethical use of the robot. That is the fourth legal issue which we need to consider. Next, let us consider a case study. That is one example. How the if where these particular issues will generally rise, right? So here we have taken three case studies. That is, one is the autonomous vehicle case study, one is in the healthcare sector, and one is the military, because these three are very important, and these play a very crucial role in the organizations. As I've told you, healthcare, when we come across healthcare and when we are manufacturing a robot in place of a doctor or in place of a nurse, what happens? It should be very legal and it should be very ethical when we are using this. That is addressing the robo in medical setting, focusing on the patient's safety. We need to consider the safety of the patients, as well as the informed constraints and the doctor patient relationships, right? So this is very important when we consider in this particular sector. Or when we come across the military, the robo, if it is hacked or if it is misused, what happens? The whole organization will collapse. So even in the military robo, the ethical and legal issues are very, very important. That is discussing the ethical implications of the autonomous weapons and the need of accountability and control is very important when we consider this. And coming to the autonomous vehicles, examining the ethical and legal challenges posed by the self-driving car includes self decision making in accident scenario. That is, it caused the life and death process. So in this case also we need to be very careful. That is, when we are giving any programming to that robot, or when we are giving installing any artificial into that particular robot, we should be very careful and give the programming in a correct form, so that the robot will be acting according to that particular action, right? Next is the frameworks. What are the various frameworks being considered when we consider these issues? That is utilitarianism, deontology, ethics, and virtue ethics, right? These are the three ethics which we need to consider. We need to focus on the moral duties and rules and regulations, and not only that, we need to develop a moral virtue when we come across the human and the robot, and we need to maximize the overall happiness and minimize the sufferings which will be taking place with this head, with the issues which will be taking place in the ethic and legal. These are the frameworks we should consider when we are writing the ethics and legal issues, right? Next, this has already been discussed. And other than this, what are the future directions, or what are the future emerging issues which we can consider when we are considering these issues? That is artificial intelligence and machine learning. As I've told you, it is very it is playing a very important role in nowadays, and human robo interactions, global perspectives, right? When we come across artificial intelligence, addressing the ethical implementations of increasing uh, intelligence is one of the important future direction. Next is the human robo interaction, that is, the human and robo are positive and promote human dignity. So this is also one of the upcoming future directions and emerging issues. Global perspective, that is diverse ethical and legal approach to the robot across different culture and legal issues are also one of the considerations which we need to consider for the future directions, right? So these are the references which we have gone through. Hope you have understood this today's session about the ethics and legal issues in robots. And in the next session we will be dealing with few of the problems, right, which can solve the different link manipulator systems, right? So this is all for today. Signing off for today, Dr. G. HimaBindhu. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.